If you want to play logistics, the first thing you want to do when you spawn into Home Island is figure out which map you want to spawn on to get your logistics going. So in order to do that, we press M to open the map and we look for this icon. There is a State of the War tent over here. We press E to open the map here. We want to be spawning into a map that has a refinery, a garage, a factory, and salvage spawns. Those maps are usually found all the way in the backline, so in this case we're colonial, so we want to be looking at one of these maps. And if we come to, for instance, Goldcrofts, we can see, if we zoom in on the axe hat, that it has a refinery, it has a garage, it has 2 factories, and it has a couple of salvage fields around here. So a good place to start would be spawning into axe hat. So once we know that, we go to the deployment area and spawn to our chosen town. Once you spawn in your map to continue your logi journey, you want to get yourself a truck. One way to get yourself a truck is to press M and to look for a seaport or a storage facility. Now, the exit has a seaport. Now, if we hover over the seaport, we can see in the 3rd bracket that there is a list of vehicles that are stored in the seaport, and we can see that there is 9 normal trucks. If we would have spawned in, for instance, Scodio, it would have had a storage depot, and we would be looking at the storage depot, and we can see that the storage depot in Scodio has 3 trucks. We come to the seaport. If we're close to the seaport, in the bottom left, it will say press E to use seaport. So we press E to open the seaport stockpile. In the right side of that menu, we can see there is different categories. We're looking for vehicles, so we click the truck icon to take us to the vehicles that are in stockpile, and we want to have an R1 hauler, so we just left click on the R1 hauler, and we can see that it starts assembling the truck. Now we can see that it put a truck on the loading dock of the seaport. All we need to do to use it for ourselves is walk up to it to the driver's side, press Q to hop in. Now in the top left, we can see the fuel meter. We can see that we're almost out of diesel. Luckily, there is a fuel truck nearby, so we come to the fuel truck. You stop, you press Q to hop out of your truck, you press E to open the inventory of your truck, and in the actions panel there is a button for refueling diesel. If we click that, it will throw out a hose from the nearest fuel tanker to refuel your truck. Another way of getting a truck is going to the garage and building a truck for ourselves. So if we press M to open the map, we can see that to our southwest is a garage. So we go towards the garage. Once we are close to the garage, we can see in the bottom left, it says press E to use garage. And in the production panel of the garage, we can look for the normal truck, the R1 hauler. If we hover over it, we can see that we need 100 basic materials, and as luck would have it, there is 100 basic materials in the garage here. So we shift click on the 100 basic materials so they go into our backpack. We select the R1 hauler in the production panel. That will put a blueprint in our garage. We press 1 to equip our hammer and walk up to the blueprint and start hammering in basic materials into the truck. Once the truck is built, we walk to the driver's side. We press Q to hop into the driver's side and drive it out of the garage. If you come to the garage and you press E to open it and you find that there are no basic materials available in the inventory of the garage, another way to look for basic materials is to press M to open the map. And if we hover over the refinery, we can see the public stockpile of the refinery, and we can see that currently it is holding 2k plus of basic materials. So if we go towards the refinery and we come to the refinery here, we can see that in the bottom left it says press E to use refinery. So we press E to use the refinery. On the right side, we see the stockpile, and we can retrieve basic materials by just clicking on the basic materials. That will start retrieving 20 basic materials at a time. So in order to get a truck, we need 100 basic materials. To be able to produce supplies like ammo and weapons, or spawn supplies and medical supplies, we first need to harvest raw materials and bring them to a refinery and make them into basic materials. So the first raw material we want to be looking for is salvage. So we press M to open the map, and we're going to look for the white screw icon. We can see one to our north. If we hover over it, we can see that it gives the name salvage field and the salvage icon, and behind that a number. That is the amount of nodes that this salvage field will still spawn. And once we see these nodes, we know that we have arrived at the salvage field. So we hop out of our truck, we press a 1 to equip our hammer, and we walk up to these nodes. And if you're close to a node, just hold down the left mouse button, and as we can see, we are gathering salvage. Now all this salvage goes into our backpack. So if we press tab to open our inventory, we can see that we gathered 200 salvage so far. Let's just keep farming some more salvage and walk up to these nodes. If you gathered enough to have your backpack full of salvage, the game will let you know and will say inventory full. That is the moment we walk back to our truck and make sure that the salvage gets placed into our truck. So we come to our truck until it says press Q to enter driver position, E for inventory, or L to look. So we want the inventory. We press E to open it. And while holding the shift key, we click on the salvage stacks, and we can see that moves it into our truck. We have 8 extra open spots, so we can farm some more salvage. So let's do that and fill up our truck. So now that we have a truck full of salvage, we want to be driving this salvage with our truck towards the refinery. The refinery is the hammer icon on the map, and we can see it on our minimap. So let's just follow our minimap towards the refinery. Over here is the refinery, so we want to be accessing the refinery. To do that, we come close to it until it says in the bottom left, press E to use refinery. So we press E, that will open up the refinery's menu. On the left side, we have the inventory of the refinery itself, the inventory of our truck. In the middle, the refinement panel, where we get to choose which resources to refine into what materials. And on the right side, we can see the stockpile of the refinery itself. The thing we are interested in most is the refinement panel in the middle. As we can see, the first 3 options here have to do with salvage. It is the same icon. We can turn salvage into basic materials, and these basic materials are used to make the standard vehicles, ammo, weapons, and buildings. We can turn salvage into diesel, which is used to fuel vehicles. And as the last option for salvage, we can turn salvage into explosive materials, which is used for things like grenades. So if we want to make basic materials, we want to be clicking on the salvage icon in front of the basic material icon. If we click it, it will take 20 salvage from your truck and put it into the queue, and it will start turning your salvage into basic materials. If you are sure you want to turn all the salvage you just gathered into basic materials, you can just shift click on the salvage icon in front of the basic materials, and that will pull the entire truck empty. Even though the refinery is already making salvage into basic materials, we can still add more to that refinement queue. So if we just shift click on the salvage again, it will pull the truck empty again and put it into the refinement We can make diesel in the same way that we can make basic materials. We go to the salvage icon in front of the diesel, and if we shift click, it will pull our entire truck empty, and it will start transforming 1500 salvage into diesel. It will do that at a ratio of 10:1, so this will be 150 diesel. It works the same way for producing explosive materials, or EMATs as they're more commonly referred to. We just shift click on the salvage icon in front of the explosive materials, and we can see that at a ratio of 10:1, it will turn these 1500 salvage into 150 EMATs, and just as with the diesel, it takes even more time to turn salvage into explosive materials. To get the basic materials that the refinery made for us, all we need to do is just click on the basic material icon in the refinement panel, and that will pull all 1500 out because we have space for 1500 basic material. First off, let's make sure that we stock up the garage with some extra basic materials, so if somebody needs a truck, they can build one. We hop out of our truck, we press E to grab, let's say 3 stacks and bring it to the garage until it says press E to use in the garage in the bottom left, and we will put those 3 stacks into the garage. To produce items, we come to the factory. If we are close to the factory in the bottom left, it will say press E to use factory. So we press E, and it will open up the factory menu. On the left side, we will have the inventory of the factory and the inventory of our truck. In the middle is the production panel that is divided into 6 categories. That is small arms, big arms, utilities, medical supplies and spawn supplies, garrison and bunker supplies, and the last category is uniforms. On the right side, we have the output panel, which shows the output of the factory for us. If we want to order anything, we go to the relevant category. So if we want to make small arms, we go to the small arms category. If we hover over, for instance, the Argenti, we can see that it will produce a crate of 20 Argenti rifles, and it will cost us 100 basic materials. So if we click on the Argenti icon, we can see that in the output panel in the small arms category, it added an Argenti rifle. Now we can order multiple crates per category, 4 to be precise. So we can do 4 Argenti rifles. If we try to click the Argenti more, we can see that it stops at 4. If we're not happy with 4 crates of Argenti rifles, we can always remove them by clicking on them. Now with 2 Argenti rifles in this order queue, if we want to make some ammo for the Argenti rifles, we can hover over it and we can see that it says that it needs 7.62 millimeter ammo. That is this ammo. And we can see if we want to make that, it will produce a crate of 40 clips for 80 basic materials. So we can click twice, and then we have an order for 4 crates. Below the order, we can see the time it will take the factory to make our order, in this case 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and the amount of materials it takes. So in this case, the BMATs, it will cost us 360 basic materials, and we have 1200 basic materials available. Currently, we can see in the small arms category there is already a timer running. That means that somebody else already put in an order for some small arms crates. We can still put an order in ourselves. So if we are happy with our order, we just hit the play button and we can see that the timer went up to 5 minutes and 40 seconds roughly. And that is the time that it will take the factory to produce the other small arms order and our small arms order. Per category, we can only put 1 order of a maximum of 4 crates in, but in the meantime, we can order in the other category. So if, for instance, we go to the medical category, we can put in an order for all 4 different medical supplies: the bandage, the first aid kits, the trauma kits, and blood plasma. Again, we can see the amount of time it will take the factory to produce it and the amount of materials it needs and how many we have. So if we are happy, we hit play on that as well. And if we go to the utilities tab, it's always helpful to have radios inside town halls, especially in logistical centers. So we are going to order 4 crates of radios. While the factory is doing its thing, we can just go do other things. After the time has elapsed that the factory needed to produce our orders, we come back to the factory where we ordered them. We press E to open the factory menu. And in the output panel, we can see that our 3 orders are complete. Now, to grab the crates of supplies from the factory, all we need to do is just click on the green check mark. And we can see that by clicking on the green check mark in the small arms category, we pulled in the 2 crates of Argentis and 2 crates of ammo for the Argentis into our truck. Same goes for the other categories. Just click the green check mark and we can see that we have a truck full of supplies. Crated supplies in and of itself are not usable. Crated supplies need to be delivered and put into a stockpile. Stockpiles are town bases, safe houses, relic bases, bunker bases, and forward operating bases, and bases that get formed by landing ships. If we come close to the town base, we can see in the bottom it says press E to use town base. So we press E to open the town base menu. And now to get these crates into the stockpile of the town base, all we need to do is right click on the crate and hit submit all to stockpile, and that will have put all the stuff into the stockpile. To figure out what a Frontline needs, we press M to open the map, and as we can see over Morgan's grave, there is a map post that says a logi list. If we hover over it, we can see that they're asking for BMATs. Another way of figuring out what a Frontline needs is hovering over the bases that are near the front line, and that will give us a drop down of everything that is in the stockpile over there. So this bunker base, for instance, we can see that it has 80 shirts, so it might need some extra shirts, and it doesn't have any basic materials at all, so it might be a good idea to bring some basic materials to this bunker base as well. Now that we have some shirts and basic materials to bring to the front line, there is a couple of more things we want to do. It is not safe to drive around with loose stacks of basic materials. You want to have your basic materials crated, so if you get ambushed, the enemy doesn't get to use your basic materials, or at least they have to uncrate them. The way to get your basic materials into crates is either retrieve them as crates from the refinery, or alternatively you can come to a seaport or a storage facility. In the truck inventory, right click on the stacks of basic materials and you click pack material crates, and that will create all the basic materials. Now that we've done that, another thing we want to do is make sure that we lock our truck so people can't just take things out. So we press L to lock our truck, and in the top right we can see that there is a padlock icon. And last but not least, we want to grab ourselves a radio so we can keep an eye on what's going on the map. Now if we press M to open the map and we put on intelligence, we can see that we get constant updates of the map, and this is going to be very helpful if we're driving a long way to bring the supplies to this bunker base. And we can keep an eye on whether or not there is an ambush around here or there is an ambush around here. If you come close to the border between hexes, so in this case, if we're close to the border of the hexes of Godcrofts and Weathered Expanse, we can see in the bottom left it says press E to travel to Weathered Expanse. So all we need to do to get to the other map is press E, and we can see that we're traveling to Weathered Expanse. After traveling, we will end up at roughly the same spot on the same road, so we can continue our travels. If you come up to open bridges, we need to close the bridge again. So we press Q to hop out. We come to this lever over here till it says press E to close bridge in the bottom left. We press E, that will close the bridge. In the meantime, we can hop back in our truck. And once the bridge is closed again, we can continue our journey. If you're tired of holding down the W key to keep your truck moving, there is a way to put on cruise control. For that, we press Enter, then we hit Control plus W and hit Enter again, and that will basically keep our truck moving. So now that we are close to Morgan Grave Town Hall, it's where they want the basic materials, so we come to the town base. When we're close to it, we can see that in the bottom left it says press E to use the town base. We press E to use the town base, and now to make sure that the basic materials and the shirts go into the town base, all we need to do is just right click on the crates and hit the submit all to stockpile button. And people will get a notification that I delivered supplies to the town hall if they set their spawn there, and if they are kind enough, they will throw me some coins.